Welcome to today's episode of Chairman's Chat. I'm the chairman of the Utah Republican Party, Derek Brown, and with me today is Representative Eric Hutchings. Welcome, Eric. It's great to have you. He is the representative for House District 38, and we have a lot of the candidates that we're talking with, but this is kind of fun because Eric's someone that I actually served with. So when I was in the House of Representative, I got a chance to work with Eric, see his style, see his effectiveness, and although I might get myself in trouble for saying this, and it is what it is. Not every elected official is created equal, so to speak, in the sense that their effectiveness is different. And so you're incredibly effective, and you've done a lot of amazing stuff. And so, anyway, we're happy to have you here with us today.
Well, thanks, and thanks for that intro. That was nice.
Well, hey,
that's
exactly.
a great way to
we
start.
may bill you
kind
for
of
that
loosen
afterwards.
it up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, good. So first of all, tell us a little bit about one of the kind of interesting things is this year. I mean, you've run a couple of campaigns. This year, different than any campaign you've ever done. I mean, I guess 2020 is different for all of us, but how has it been different? Like if you could sort of put your finger on one thing, how did it change kind of the usual campaign to whatever this just was?
Sure. So we're still young enough, I think, that we can be savvy with technology, but I'm a people person. I like people. And I think the coolest thing about the way that we do the process, just the democratic process in general, people get to come out and talk to you, right? They want to see you. They want to shake your hand. They want to have an opportunity.
Hide from them, right?
You can't. And it's supposed to be that way. And actually, I think it's really good. Going through elections every 2 years is busy. It's complicated.
It's
you
hard,
spend
yep.
a massive amount of time. My kids ask me, how come we don't go skiing more often? Well, it's because we campaign. Every time the snow starts to fall, we're either knocking doors or we're busy in the
session is right during the best ski weeks of the year.
To live in Utah and to be in the legislature is almost a little counterproductive if you're a good skier.
This is a good point.
Yeah. You got to make your weekends super effective. But this one, I think it's been good because it's allowed an opportunity to get more messaging out. Because traditional style, knocking doors is, in my opinion, just being there person to person, face to face, letting people get to know who you are, as a real person. Yeah. And the fact
There's no replacement for that, really.
Yeah, because people, I think, too often in government, even in a democracy like we have, even in one that functions as well as it does in Utah, people can feel disassociated sometimes. And to have that connection, to be able to reach out and say, no, I met him. Yeah, he came to my house. We shook hands. Yeah. That's a big deal. And I think it just builds confidence in people that the system's not only there, but the system is approachable. And that if you have an issue or if there's something really important that you want to try and deal with, there's lots of ways, especially this year, that people are trying to get their message out and get their voice heard. And I think we just need to reassure people that the easiest way is just call me. Pick up the phone, drop me an email. Come to my house.
Yeah, the in-person things
I may regret saying that, but the home address is on the website, right? True. And it happens all the time. People come and talk to me, and
my wife stopped going to the grocery store with me when I'd go to run an errand because she'd know invariably someone would go, hey, I've got this issue.
Yep.
And so you can't hide.
And you stand there while all the shopping happens, and then she comes back to get you half an hour later.
Okay, We've done this. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's the great thing about it, though. That's what I love about the way our government works is, you know what, you can't hide, and you shouldn't hide.
You shouldn't.
And you need to be out there
so that
because people, I think, get a tremendous sense of comfort from feeling like they know exactly where to go if they have an issue.
Yeah.
And it's not some strange white tower in the middle of nowhere. It's just Eric Hutchings.
It's Eric who lives down the street, and
just down Impressions across from the park. So
when you're doing that this year, okay, and you probably get the same as I got the sense that every time I would run for re-election, there was like a couple of issues that everyone was talking about. Like there were themes, right? And so you probably see recurring themes, but like what are the themes this year? Like as you talk to people, what are the 2 or 3 things? I mean, do you see kind of the same thing over and over?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, COVID probably is one.
Well, the COVID, but I think more than just COVID itself is the impacts of COVID. So the economy has been an interestingly universal one. People are worried about the debt. People are worried about just not only the federal debt, but how is that going to impact them? How is even if it's just been a slight dip, even if they've only been laid off a few weeks, Or what if their business, and some of them, I've met people, their businesses have struggled. I mean, really,
Hmm.
really struggled. A lot of people that were working in service industry. So they have this gap.
Yeah,
And the question is, how do we get back from that? And that, quite frankly, and you
so
can
you see
relate to
that quite a
this,
bit.
best managed state in America is kind of a nice place to have to deal with that. Because if you
And
can
the
get the
lowest unemployment in the
right,
country. I mean,
right,
we're pretty unique here.
across the board, yeah, our unemployment right now is excellent. And what we need to continue to do is make sure the wages are there, make sure the job training opportunities are there. That's
Right.
huge because some people are going to have to transition even later in life. And it's something, honestly, that I think as a state we can support a lot more. Is you always think about somebody who's changing careers as kind of a younger person, right? Just coming out of college, sorting things out, or just coming out of high
Yeah.
school,
No, no more, isn't
getting
it?
some vocational training. But there are so many opportunities out there now with really excellent vocational training. And more importantly, I think, is when somebody needs to make that transition, the state, through our higher education and everything, vocational schools, tech schools, we need to make it easy and super efficient for somebody to come back in,
Yeah.
get the skills they need, and then get right back out to work again so they can get caught up. They need to
No,
get caught up, and we need to help them.
that's great, and that's such a huge issue right now with the economy shifting, and I think COVID's going to force us. All these small businesses that are closing, it'll pick up the slack elsewhere, and we need to sort of adjust. And so,
Well, and we're going to have to innovate like crazy because you've
oh
seen
yeah,
it. I mean, conferences aren't anything like they used to be. So what's going to happen with hotels? What's going to happen with? But then you look at, those industries that are making the tech and preparing the tech and supporting the tech that allows all this remote work
those
to
are
happen.
those are booming.
Holy cow, they're
Those are
booming.
booming. So
Didn't we hit a $1 trillion valuation for Apple the other day, or some insane
yep,
number like that?
there's a reason for I hear 1-800-CONTACTS just sold for $3 billion a couple weeks ago, and it's because they're on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah.
So let me ask, in terms of cutting edge, one of the things you're well known for, not just here in Utah but nationally, is criminal justice reform, which is a huge issue. And when I worked with Senator Lee, it kind of surprised me. But he said when I first got there, he said this is a huge issue. And some people have questioned, well, is this a Republican issue or a Democrat issue? And he'd always say it's an issue about doing the right thing, making certain that the punishment meets the crime. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just about doing the right thing. And you've kind of pioneered some stuff in terms of changing the laws, and not just in Utah but all across the country. So can you talk a little bit about what that is for anyone who is in your district that doesn't know that,
Sure.
like kind of what I know,
Sure.
they haven't seen the national impact of your legislation.
Yeah, no, and it's Utah really does lead out in a lot of unusual ways. People don't expect it. They see kind of a conservative state, and they wouldn't expect us to be these hardcore reformers, second
Yeah.
chance providers. A lot of them
Exactly.
think, Republicans are just lock them up, throw away the key, and not in Utah.
No.
And a big part
Not
of
at
that,
all.
honestly, and it was really interesting because when I first really got into this space, and part of it's because I've been the chair of the budget committee that's over all the corrections related stuff. So I got to see it all really closely,
Just locking
all the
people up
facilities.
isn't,
Yeah.
even financially doesn't make sense.
Well,
Right?
and because they're all getting out. 95% of everybody incarcerated is coming out to the community at some
At some
point.
point, yeah.
And so we can either make it impossible for them to survive, we can make it impossible for their communities to reabsorb them back in because we've either turned them into monsters, because of the way we treated them in there, or we have stacked the deck where they have no skills, no opportunities, and then
And they have
they can't.
trouble getting licensed to do things or that
Yeah,
kind of
well,
stuff.
and then they go back underground again because we just made it so hard.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting though when we first started, people would ask me, "Are you kind of nervous about doing something like this?" But I'll tell you, I
Nervous
was
meaning because you're like the Republican Party isn't always
yeah,
comfortable
yes,
with
yeah,
these issues.
Yeah, and sometimes major changes like that take a little time to get
Yeah,
people comfortable. And we
they
went
do.
pretty hard, pretty fast. But I'll tell you, the interesting part was bumping into people in the hallway. Everybody has a family member in jail. Everybody, well, not, but
Or they know someone, but
statistically,
yeah.
right? But my point is that it shocked me how many people would very quietly come up to me and say, "I've got an uncle who's in prison," or "I've got a brother who's been in and out of jail his whole life," or "I've got a child of mine that's struggling with addiction and has been arrested several times, and we are just, as a family, we are just being crushed by all this." And to give families and individuals a chance to, especially the ones that have really done it,
Sure.
we are still hardcore. You hurt somebody in Utah, we're building a brand new prison, and it has tall walls and thick walls and big ugly guards. So you hurt people, we're going to take care of that. But if you really, truly, honestly have turned your life around, we need to give you a chance to prove it, number one. And then secondly, be able to get back in there, and we are leading the nation. Quick stat for you that I think is
Yeah.
fascinating. There's a thing they call the school to prison pipeline. And it's a kid gets in trouble when they're young, right? They truant or they get expelled or something. Anyway, they get a label. And the point is it kind of puts them on a pipeline that ultimately just ends up in prison.
Yeah.
And it's been something
You
that's
just
been
see it
talked about
happening.
nationally.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you know.
So a few years ago, we did adult reform, which was cool. But the juvenile reform that we have done has changed the entire landscape. It's amazing. And we have right now in the state of Utah a better environment to crush that school to prison pipeline, in my opinion, than any other state in America. So much so that we have dropped the number of kids that are being incarcerated in Utah by 75%.
Really?
Really?
I knew we dropped it, but I didn't realize
Oh,
it
it's
was
dramatic. It's dramatic.
Really?
And we're getting them better supports because we're recognizing when there's mental health issues. We're recognizing when there's issues at home. Mom and dad just got divorced, or dad just got locked up or something. But so now you got a kid that's having a horrible day. Well, instead of having a horrible day and doing something really stupid, turning you into a criminal, now we have other routes. Now, if you do something bad, like I said, we still have big ugly guards at big ugly facilities. But for those kids that they screwed up and they need a hand and they need to make it right and they need to do what's right to put it back on track, but we can now do it in a way that doesn't give them a criminal record. We can help families.
I love it.
We can help kids. We truly, honestly are changing the landscape in all of America. And you look at the 10 years from now, all of those kids that don't get locked up today aren't going to get locked up as an adult 10 years from
So
now.
it's not just the morally right thing to do. It's financially feasible. It helps, well, because it impacts everyone.
Everyone.
Someone goes into prison, and we think of that person in prison. We don't think of kids, spouses, relatives, and that entire
Yes.
family that's also
And
suffering.
schools.
And
So now
schools,
we
yeah.
have, so you think about it, you have a situation in a school where a kid's really struggling. Well, part of that challenge historically has been if a principal has a kid that's really causing problems, their only option was to call the cops. And now all of a sudden
Now
you
you've
have the
got more
police show
options.
up
Yeah.
and you're dragging a kid down the hallway and he's got the reputation. We don't do that anymore. We don't
I
do
love
that
it.
anymore. We can help the family. We can help the child. We can help the schools. We truly, honestly, we have radically changed the system in such a good way. And everybody gets it because they have kids that struggle.
Well, and I love that because it shows we can see the humanness
Yeah.
in each person, and rather than
Yeah.
just a statistic or a category or a label, we can actually sort of dig into their life and go,
Yeah.
oh, this is what he needs, or this is what she needs, and then kind of tailor that.
Well,
So
when you asked me at first, issues I run into when I'm walking, I think that's the other big thing that COVID's brought up. People are starting to recognize humanity a little better.
yeah,
I think people are becoming a little more sensitive to, the fact that we're all human. We all have struggles. We all have different issues, and people
Yeah.
need to be protective and respectful of each other. And that just played nicely into the reform thing. But honestly, I think when we start coming out of this COVID thing, we're going to just like each other maybe a little bit more than we did before.
we may appreciate things
Yeah.
like human interaction. a
Having
little more.
somebody knock on the door may just be kind of a beautiful thing. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for mentioning that, because this is, I mean, for those of you who are watching, what Representative Hutchings has done is really groundbreaking on so many levels. And you've started trends that we're seeing across the country in this entire arena. And what I love the most about it is it really helps us see people as humans and not as labels, and able to sort of look at their lives and help them out. And there's all sorts of other things. I mean, the number of bills that you've sponsored and worked with, I mean, we could spend hours talking about it, but this is one that I just wanted to talk about because I think it has the most sort of local and far-reaching impact.
Absolutely. And it's super relevant right now because of the other things that are going on. Black Lives Matter, some of the protests. When people talk about policing reform, Utah is a lot further down that road than almost any other
that's
state
true.
in America.
We've already been doing this.
Because people talk about defunding the police, that's not really what they're saying. They just want a different kind of police. They want the kind of police that when you come out and there really is a mental health issue, that we're going to address it as a mental health issue. And years ago, the only way to get somebody help, truly honestly, was through the courts. And there was one door into services, and you had to get to the courts, whether it was a referral from the police or referral from, I don't know, a school or
You had
something.
to actually do something bad.
Yes,
Something to
and
get
they're
there. Yeah.
demanding, give us resources to help people in crisis without turning them into criminals just because they're having maybe a serious bout with depression. Maybe they are just lost their job, and now you've got a guy who's just kind of losing it. Huge issue for domestic violence. But the point is, we need to prevent the violence, but we can do an awful lot of that if we'll start earlier by providing services and not require you to have to go through a court anymore. And we're doing it.
I love it.
And we're leading out. It's good
I love
stuff.
it. I love it. Well, we got to wrap up, but thank you, Representative Eric Hutchings. Thank you for being here. We appreciate all the good work you've done. You will have ballots, everyone, arriving in just a couple of days. So when that happens, please be sure. And for those of you in district, I forgot the number again.
District 38?
38.
West
Those
side.
of you on the west side, District 38, be sure to vote for Representative Eric Hutchings. And thank you for joining us today for this edition of Chairman's Chat.